strongly encourage the other nations to get involved with us and get involved quickly and with great enthusiasm. So we want them to come and help us with the strait.
The most powerful man in the world just asked his biggest rival for help and got told no. Just flat out no. Think about what that means for a second. The United States, the country that has projected military dominance across the globe since World War II, is standing in the middle of a shooting war, bleeding money, watching oil prices spike, losing allies one by one, and now turning to Beijing with its hand out. China just left it hanging. And here's what nobody is talking about. This single moment doesn't just embarrass Trump, it exposes something much bigger, a crack in American power that the entire world is watching in real time. Stay with me, because by the end of this video, you're going to see why China's move here is one of the most calculated and dangerous geopolitical plays in decades. To understand why this matters so much, you need to know what Trump actually asked for. 3 weeks ago, the US and Israel launched a combined military strike on Iran. They called it Operation Epic Fury. Airstrikes on nuclear sites, missile defense systems, military infrastructure across the country. Within days, Iran's air defenses were gone. American and Israeli forces owned the skies completely. By every traditional measure, it looked like a decisive military victory. But Iran didn't collapse. It adapted. Instead of fighting in the air, Iran took the war somewhere America couldn't dominate as easily: the water, the Strait of Hormuz, a narrow strip of ocean barely 21 miles wide at its tightest point. And here's the thing about that strip of water: about 1/5 of the entire world's oil supply passes through it every single day. Tankers carrying crude to Europe, Asia, America, liquefied natural gas keeping factories running, and lights on across the globe. Iran started mining it. Small speedboats, drones, asymmetric warfare at its most effective. And it worked almost immediately. Commercial shipping slowed to a crawl. Oil prices started climbing. Markets started panicking. So Trump needed help clearing those mines and escorting tankers through the strait. He went to NATO allies first. France said no. Germany said no. The UK said no. The EU's top diplomat said plainly, "This is not Europe's war." So Trump turned to China. He asked Beijing to use its enormous economic leverage over Iran, its diplomatic relationships across the Middle East, to help reopen the strait. China's response? A non-answer dressed up as diplomacy. Their foreign ministry called for parties to immediately stop military operations. In plain English, you started this, you fix it. Now here is where this gets really interesting, because China's refusal is not a reaction, it's a strategy, and the layers underneath it will change how you see everything that follows. Put yourself in Beijing's position for a moment. The United States launched a war that most of its own allies consider illegal. A war that is now chewing through American military resources, costing over $11 billion in 3 weeks and shredding Washington's credibility on the world stage every single day. And now Washington needs China's help to clean it up. Why would Beijing ever say yes to that? Ali Wine, a senior advisor at the International Crisis Group, put it in terms that should genuinely stop you cold. He said Trump's request to delay the Beijing summit shows how badly Washington underestimated the fallout from this war. A show of American force that was supposed to intimidate China has instead, in his exact framing, punctured the illusion of U.S. omnipotence. The illusion of U.S. omnipotence. That phrase matters more than almost anything else in this story, because that illusion has been one of the most powerful weapons in America's geopolitical arsenal for decades. Other countries don't challenge the US, partly because of actual military capability and partly because of the perception that picking a fight with Washington means you lose. Always. That perception is cracking right now, publicly, undeniably. And China's strategy is almost elegant in how simple it is. Don't intervene, don't escalate. Just watch the United States burn its own credibility. One senior analyst said it plainly. Most Chinese officials believe America is undermining itself, so they just need to get out of the way. But China isn't just sitting back passively. While Washington drops bombs, Beijing is moving across the Middle East making friends. Chinese diplomats delivering humanitarian aid, pledging constructive peace efforts. After a US airstrike hit an Iranian girls' elementary school and killed 168 people, mostly children, China's ambassador to Iran publicly condemned it. Beijing delivered emergency aid to the families through the Red Cross. China is not just refusing to help America, it is actively positioning itself as the responsible global power, while the US is the one explaining why it bombed a school. That is not accidental. That is the whole point. There was supposed to be a historic Trump-Xi summit on March 31st, a state visit to Beijing. One of the most anticipated diplomatic meetings in years, with the potential to reshape trade relations, technology agreements, and the broader balance between the world's two superpowers. It has been delayed indefinitely. Trump is calling it mutual. He says the Chinese were fine with the delay and claims a very good working relationship with Beijing. Beijing itself has been measured, saying both sides remain in communication. But read what's actually underneath that. A recent US-China trade meeting in Paris produced almost nothing. Structural disagreements on technology and economic security remain completely unresolved. American business leaders were already nervous that the summit wasn't going to deliver any real agreements. And now you have a US president asking Beijing to help him out of a military disaster he created while simultaneously trying to negotiate trade. That is a catastrophic position to bargain from. You don't go to a negotiating table after publicly begging the other side for a favor and expect to get what you want. The delay looks polite on the surface. Underneath it, Beijing just watched Washington's leverage evaporate in real time. Here is the part of this story that most people are missing entirely. For over a decade, the central pillar of American foreign policy has been the pivot to Asia, the recognition that the defining competition of this century is between the US and China, and that Washington needs to be fully focused, resourced, and present in the Indo-Pacific to compete. That pivot is stalling out right now. Military assets have been pulled from the Indo-Pacific and redirected to the Middle East. Marine Rapid Response Units, anti-missile defense systems. Equipment and personnel that were pointed toward the China challenge are now pointed toward a war in the Persian Gulf. Zach Cooper at the American Enterprise Institute said the longer this war continues and the more forces get pulled out of Asia, the more it feeds allied concerns about American distraction and resource constraints. Think about what that means for Taiwan specifically. The US is legally required to give Taiwan sufficient hardware to defend itself against a Chinese invasion. Beijing has promised it will take Taiwan by force if it has to. Arms sales to Taiwan were on the agenda for the Beijing summit. Now that summit is delayed with no new date. Every week the Iran war drags on is another week Taiwan's defense pipeline is uncertain. Another week China gets to study American overextension up close. Another week Beijing learns more about the gaps in American strategic focus. Cooper said it directly. China is happy to delay the visit and reap the benefits as the United States gets bogged down in the Middle East again. That word again is doing a lot of work in that sentence. And sitting underneath all of this, like a bomb with a timer nobody can read, is the nuclear question. Trump's justification for this war was simple: stop Iran from getting a nuclear weapon. Before the bombing started, US intelligence said Iran was weeks away from being able to enrich uranium to bomb grade. Trump told reporters Iran was within 1 month of a weapon. Experts pushed back immediately. Enriching uranium and actually building a deliverable nuclear bomb are completely different things, separated by months of additional work. This week, the director of the National Counterterrorism Center resigned over the war, writing in his resignation letter that Iran posed no imminent threat to the United States. But here's the real problem underneath all of that debate. 18 days of bombing have not destroyed the nuclear material. The highly enriched uranium is believed to be buried deep underground beneath a mountain in Isfahan. Reaching it would require a ground operation. Trump himself keeps publicly musing about this possibility, which is an almost unprecedented thing for a president to do mid-conflict. The complications are almost incomprehensible. Nobody knows for certain where all the fuel is stored. If the storage canisters get pierced, the escaping gas is both toxic and radioactive. Experts believe Iran has already prepared for exactly this scenario, scattering decoy canisters and building layers of deception into the tunnels. Before the war started, Iran's foreign minister had offered a deal: blend the nuclear material down to reactor-grade levels under full international inspection. With it staying inside Iran, the US rejected it. That deal is now gone, And the bombing that was supposed to create regime change did the opposite. It created regime reinforcement. A new hardline supreme leader was just appointed. Iran's new leadership has said publicly there are no ceasefire plans and the war won't end until the US and Israel accept defeat. The goal of the war created the opposite of the goal. So here is exactly where things stand. 3 weeks in, no exit strategy visible. NATO has walked away. China has walked away. The Strait of Hormuz is still partially closed. Oil prices are still climbing. A new Iranian supreme leader is on record saying there will be no peace. And the United States, the country that started this war projecting absolute dominance, is now publicly asking rivals for help and getting refused by allies. China said no, calmly, strategically, precisely. The most important shift here is not military. It is perceptual. The gap between the image of American power and the reality of American limits is where geopolitical turning points are born. China doesn't need to fire a single shot. It just needs to keep doing what it is already doing. Watching, waiting, and winning the framing war while the bombs fall somewhere else. The world just watched the most powerful nation on earth ask for help and get told no. That is not a footnote in this story. That is the story.